Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
In 2015, James and Amanda Colley's marriage was over. James had moved out and they both moved on to seeing other people. But they were waiting for a court date to make their divorce official. In the meantime, Amanda met a man through work and the two became intimate. In August 2015, Amanda and her new man, Lamar Duberly, would regularly stay at each other's places.
We split time between my camper and I would also spend the night at her house.
And when you say her house, is that the house on South Bellagio in Marabella?
It is.
Amanda was still living at the house she once shared with her husband in St. Johns County, Florida. James asked one of his neighbors to keep an eye on the house for him. One day, a neighbor took a photo of Lamar mowing the lawn at the home without a shirt. The photo eventually made its way to James's phone. Around 5 a.m. on August 26th, James began calling and texting Amanda over and over again. On this particular night, she was sleeping over at Lamar's. Phone records showed James called her 22 times. She answered 2 of those calls. Amanda found out James had ransacked her home, destroying TVs, breaking glasses, and throwing clothes about the rooms. He was apparently looking for Lamar. Amanda and Lamar were so shaken up when they heard the news, they couldn't go back to sleep. Amanda, knowing she had a court date set for 9 a.m. with James, thought she better focus on that and would go to her house after it to assess the damage. Once at the house, Amanda FaceTimed Lamar to show him the situation.
The home was generally ransacked. There was some televisions destroyed. There were clothes tossed everywhere.
What did you decide to do after you saw that?
At this point, I decided to go ahead and call the non-emergency line for St. Johns County to report a domestic incident.
A public service assistant, or PSA, from the sheriff's office arrived to take an incident report. The PSA quickly determined the house was a crime scene and needed to call a deputy. As the PSA was leaving, Amanda's friend, Lindy Dobbins, arrived at the house. Not long after, Amanda's other friend, Rachel Hendricks, also arrived. Amanda and Lindy went into the master bedroom to survey the damage. Lamar was there too by this time, and he and Rachel were standing in the living room when they heard a pop, pop.
Went back into the house, standing in the living room, and there was a loud shatter of glass shattering, and a small explosion, like a bang, coming from the outside in.
Lamar thought the noise sounded like 4th of July fireworks going off, so he leaned in closer to the sliding glass door. He looked at the vertical blinds and noticed a hole in one. As he did, a second hole appeared, not far from where he was standing.
I picked up this bullet hole about the same time the second shot came through, which was ballpark right in this area. Okay. And then I heard, where is he? Where is he? It was faint when I got over here, and I thought that somebody was pretty far away. Okay. And so at that point, I kind of did register what was happening.
Lamar realized someone was standing behind the house, firing in. Thinking he might be the target of the shooter, and he himself was unarmed, Lamar ran. He bolted out through the laundry room, rolled underneath the garage door, and booked it through the cul-de-sac. Rachel ran in the opposite direction, seeking refuge in the master bedroom where Amanda and Lindy were. Amanda went into the bathroom and hid. Lindy ran into the closet, so Rachel followed behind her, slamming the door and barricading the two in.
I wedged my foot up underneath the door and had my left hand on the doorknob, trying to lock it. There was no lock on the door, so I was trying to lock it and just keep...
Kind of like I'm gesturing, like
yes.
Holding the door closed?
Yes.
With your fist. And wedging your foot under the door. And where did Lindy go?
Lindy went and knelt down next to a chest that was up against the right wall of the master closet. She hid behind that.
They heard someone entering the home and going into the master bathroom. Lindy knew she needed to keep quiet, but called 911 so the call would be recorded and so they could hear what was going on. The man was screaming at Amanda, repeating, "Where is he? Where is he? Where the fuck is he?" Amanda, upset and crying, tried telling the man that her two friends were in the closet. Rachel heard a shot, and then a second shot was fired through the closet door. She instantly felt a bullet graze her arm. She backed off the door and it swung open, banging up against her. The man walked straight over to Lindy, who was kneeling down.
I heard Lindy say, "Oh my God, no," and I ran out of the closet and heard a shot and ran out the front doors of the home.
Was the intruder Amanda's husband, James? And what frame of mind would make a person start shooting at this group of people? This is Jillian, and you are listening to Court Junkie, episode 125. Rachel Hendricks ran for her life. She slipped out from the closet, ran out through the bedroom, and made her way down the street. She began knocking on doors, trying to find someone who would let her in. She stopped in front of one, rang the doorbell, and noticed the front door was unlocked. She went in and realized it was the home of one of her friends. When she told them what had happened, they instantly called 911. The dispatcher asked to speak with her.
"I'm hiding in a closet at the neighbor's house. I'm scared to death."
Rachel told 911 that Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins had been shot. She said she was scared to death and begged the police to come quickly. Meanwhile, Lamar had run a street or two over and found a group landscaping. He was gasping for air as he approached them, but managed to get out that he needed them to call 911. Lamar then looped around back to the main road and followed behind law enforcement as they made their way into the neighborhood. 3 deputies arrived first. They parked down the street in the subdivision so that they wouldn't be seen in case there was still an active shooter. They began walking on foot with rifles out in a low, ready position, maneuvering through several backyards, taking cover behind houses and cars as they made their approach. Once they made it to the Colley's driveway, they formed an entry team. Deputy Samuel DeLuca of the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office saw the front door was unlocked and went inside.
We enter aggressively, not quite running, but in an aggressive, controlled fashion in the house. Clearing the building is a lot of silent moving off of your partner's body. So if we're all coming piling through that front door, if I see Sergeant Bouchard start taking the area to the right, going around this wall here, I'm going to naturally go the other way. So we're always trying to watch each other's backs and flow.
Deputy DeLuca saw broken glass and bullet holes in the house. His threat level went from high to extremely high. They next worked to clear each of the rooms in the house, finally making their way into the master bedroom.
So at this point, I saw a female down, crouched down, kind of a kneeling defensive position, and I immediately started giving her verbal commands. I'm like, "Hey, sheriff's office, sheriff's office." And I got nothing. So like, that's weird. So I yelled again, "Sheriff's office." I'm trying to say, "Hey, come on, let's get out of here." And there was no response. So what I did was I walked up even closer And then at that time, I could see signs of lividity on her arms and legs, which was a sign that she was deceased. There was nothing at that point that I could do for her. So I verbalized to Deputy Bragg that I had a victim. And at the same time, he advised me, yes, I have one too. I have victims. Okay.
Deputy DeLuca exited the closet and met up with Deputy Bragg in the bathroom when he saw their second victim, Amanda Colley, on the ground on her back, deceased. They cleared the rest of the home and found no one else was there. The deputies realized they had a double homicide, and their murder suspect was nowhere in sight. It was all hands on deck at the Colley home on August 27, 2015. St. Johns County Sheriff's Office deputies and detectives from the Special Victims Unit were called out. A canine bloodhound named Inverness arrived on scene, and she instantly picked up a scent. Inverness started trailing out through the backyard and through another backyard. She landed at the driveway of an abandoned house, circled it a couple times, and then indicated that there was no more scent trail. This indicated to her handler that the suspect had gotten into a vehicle. Detective Samantha English was assigned as the lead investigator on the case. She met with Rachel Hendricks, who told her she believed she knew who the man was. Rachel said that when the bullets started flying through the sliding glass door, she had a clear view of the shooter.
First, I was trying to figure out where it was coming from and what it was. So I looked out back from, obviously the glass was shattered and falling on the floor. So I looked out back and I saw Mr. Colley standing in the backyard with a handgun shooting into the living room.
Okay. And you immediately recognized him when you saw him?
Yes, I did.
Rachel identified the shooter as 35-year-old James Colley Jr., Amanda's estranged husband. She said that she also recognized James's voice as the man arguing with Amanda in the bathroom. And she said she watched as James entered the closet and pointed a gun at Lindy's head. Rachel provided Detective English with a description of James's car, a green Ford pickup truck with a duck head sticker on the back. Detective English put a BOLO, or be on the lookout, call for James and his vehicle. She was able to obtain a warrant for James's arrest for 2 counts of first-degree homicide. The only problem was she had no idea where James was. Detective English entered the warrant information into a state and nationwide database, hoping that any law enforcement who might happen to come across him would be able to run his name and get a hit for the warrant. She also learned that since separating from Amanda, James had been living with his sister, Rhonda. Deputy Doug Koweski headed over to Rhonda's house.
Initially, I was looking at the mailboxes to try and find the address, and as I was looking at the mailboxes and I looked up, I saw a green pickup coming out of the driveway, and as it was backing up, it backed toward me with its rear towards the front of my car, green Ford pickup, and once I saw the duck symbol in the back window, it matched the description to me.
The deputy conducted a traffic stop and told the 2 men inside the truck to exit the vehicle. The driver was an older man with gray hair. The passenger had sandy brown hair. The driver was flustered, panicked, and didn't know what was going on.
First, he was like, "What's going on?" And I explained that we were looking for his son. He identified himself, and he made a statement that he had told James that he had got a call from James, and he said, "You should have never gone over to Amanda's house."
The driver was identified as James Colley Sr. He told the deputy he had gotten a call from his son earlier that day and told him that he should have never gone over to Amanda's house. The deputy determined the man with sandy brown hair was not the defendant. Law enforcement learned that James was last seen driving in his sister's maroon 2010 Infiniti convertible. This information was updated in the BOLO. A tip led them more than 600 miles away to a town in Virginia, not far from the Tennessee-Kentucky border. A woman driving on US 23 North called into the Norton, Virginia Police Department at 9:48 p.m. on August 27th, saying she was being harassed by another motorist. The other motorist had made multiple attempts to stop her, including running her out of the roadway and stopping in front of her. The other motorist was in a maroon Infiniti convertible. Norton, Virginia Police Department Detective Matthew Hubbard was dispatched to the scene. Around 10 p.m., Detective Hubbard watched the Infiniti driving at a low rate of speed. It would speed up to the speed limit and then slow back down and almost coast along. A traffic stop was conducted, and the driver was told to exit the vehicle. The driver was positively identified as James Colley Jr. The detective looked inside the vehicle and noticed 2 guns in the front passenger seat, an AR-15 and a handgun. James was then placed into handcuffs and arrested. The detective patted James down, checking to see if he had any other weapons on him. 2 bullets were found in his pockets, along with receipts and pieces of broken glass. For Detective English, news of James's arrest, nearly 11 and a half hours after the murders, was what she had been waiting for.
And what did you do and others in response to getting that information?
Immediately left and drove to Norton, Virginia.
Okay. And who went?
Myself, then now Sergeant Tolbert and Sergeant Russ Morton.
Detective English and 2 other sergeants drove through the night from St. Johns County, Florida, to Wise County, Virginia, arriving at about 9 the next morning. Norton, Virginia police worked to obtain warrants for James's DNA, clothing, and vehicle. James was charged with driving under the influence, refusal to take a DUI test, and ordered to be held without bond in Virginia on the fugitive warrant for murder charges. On September 4th, James was indicted on 7 charges. First-degree murder with a firearm for the deaths of Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins. Attempted first-degree murder with a firearm of Rachel Hendricks and Lamar Duberly. 2 counts of burglary and aggravated stalking after an injunction. 4 days later, James agreed to waive his extradition proceedings and was brought back to Florida. On November 4th, the state filed notice that they intended to seek the death penalty. James Colley and Amanda Cloninger first began their relationship in 2007. They married and had 2 children together. In 2015, their daughter was about 2 years old, and their son was 5. James was working as a government insurance auditor at Citibank in Jacksonville. As Detective English learned more about the Colleys' relationship, she realized August 27th was not the first time James had gone after Amanda. On July 13th, Amanda filed a temporary injunction for protection against domestic violence involving minor children. Amanda told a judge that James took her clothes from their home and burned them in their backyard. He also threw a purse at her, stole her medication, and threatened to kill her dog. According to court documents, quote, he has threatened in the past to cut her if he caught her cheating. The injunction was approved the same day and prohibited James from any contact with his wife, including going to her home and work. The next day, Amanda filed a motion for modification of injunction, writing, quote, my husband is not a danger to the children, so should be able to spend equal time with them. I am requesting 50-50 custody. But their case didn't end there. A week later, James texted Amanda, telling her that he went inside her home while she was at work. He then drove to her work and drove through the parking lot looking for her. On July 29th, James was arrested for violating the injunction. He was released from jail on $500 cash bond. Shortly thereafter, Amanda and James filed for divorce. On August 10th, Circuit Judge Howard McGillen Jr. filed a judgment in the domestic violence case, writing, quote, The court finds that the respondent, James Colley, has committed at least one act of domestic assault. Moreover, the respondent has also committed several acts that place the petitioner in reasonable fear that she will be the future victim of domestic violence. Through counsel, James Colley said he was not contesting that he had burned her clothing. He claimed he surrendered his firearms and ammo to the sheriff's office. He also claimed he had enrolled in a batterer's intervention course. He was scheduled to go to court one final time on August 27th. Around 9 a.m. that morning, James entered a plea of no contest and was sentenced to 364 days probation. He was ordered to have no violent contact with Amanda. Detective English believes James left that court hearing and drove straight over to her house.
You're fucking disgusting. That's what you are. Call me, or I'm going to come find you. Fucking whore. These are some of the last words Amanda Colley heard from her estranged husband on the morning she was murdered. Words sent in voicemails, threats sent over text message, and words yelled at her as she was shot and murdered on her bathroom floor.
Prosecutor Jennifer Dunton said James Colley was not supposed to be within 500 feet of his estranged wife. But instead, he drove over to her house in the middle of the night looking for her. When Amanda wasn't there, the state says James became angry. He realized that Amanda had moved on from him and he lost control. That's when the state believes James ransacked her house. And when James drove back over to Amanda's house after the court proceedings the next day, Prosecutor Dunton said he was going to kill Amanda and Lamar. He went into the closet, despite Amanda saying Lamar wasn't in there, and killed her best friend anyway. Prosecutor Dunton said James could have headed anywhere else to blow off his anger, but he decided to go to the one place he wasn't allowed to go.
He was mad, and instead of leaving court and heading to work, he made that choice. He didn't go to work. Instead, he went and armed himself with multiple firearms. You'll see the evidence in his bedroom, his sister's ammunition, firearms boxes thrown about his bedroom in a rush to get those guns and head to South Bellagio.
Attorney Terry Shoemaker delivered opening statements on behalf of the defense. He said it's very seldom that he gets up in front of a jury and agrees with much of what the state says. But this is a different case. He conceded his client did go into the house in the early morning hours, did make a mess of the house, did go to court, and then leave court and go to the neighborhood, and ultimately, Amanda and Lindy were killed.
The question here isn't who did that. It's never been a question of who did that. The question is, why did it happen? How did this happen? How could a person that loved his family more than anything in his life do that?
Shoemaker asked the jury rhetorically, how could a person who loves his kids more than anything in his life, coaches football, coaches baseball, takes them to Disney, make them into orphans? He said the answer lies further back in time. James thought his marriage was falling apart earlier that year, but Amanda denied anything was going on. He thought maybe he was crazy, Shoemaker said, so he sought medical help. James was also having orthopedic problems and was taking pain pills, such as hydrocodone and Percocet. He started having sleeping problems, panic attacks, and suffering from depression because he thought he couldn't keep his family together. He was prescribed Ambien to help him fall asleep and Wellbutrin for panic attacks and depression. He was having bad reactions to the medications and was switched to Cymbalta not long before the murders. After ransacking the house, Shoemaker said James returned home at 5 a.m. and took an Ambien to try to fall asleep before his court hearing. Shoemaker said the defense would present expert witnesses to explain how this cocktail would affect a person's ability to think, act, and form intent. He said they would specifically talk about how Ambien can cause memory loss, sleepwalking, and acts that people have no recollection of. In other words, Shoemaker said, it's very possible that at the time of these events, his client didn't know what he was doing or didn't know what he was intending to do. He presented the jury with an involuntary intoxicology defense and told them James was unable to form the premeditated intent to commit murder. Rachel Hendricks was the first witness to take the stand. She told the jury about meeting Amanda Colley in 2012 and how they quickly formed a close friendship. She said they would take their children to the beach, go to the pool together, and often arranged playdates. She didn't know James well, but knew he moved out in the beginning of summer in 2015. She left her hair appointment on the morning of August 27th to go to Amanda's house when she heard that it had been ransacked. Rachel said she positively identified James Colley as the shooter. She ran into the closet and also recognized his voice as the one arguing with Amanda. She got another good look at him as he entered the closet and pointed a gun at Lindy's head.
You saw Mr. Colley with a handgun in his hand when he came in the closet?
Yes.
And did you see him point it at Lindy?
Yes, at her head.
What was he wearing?
Black dress slacks with a white button-down collared shirt.
When you heard the initial gunshots, when you heard what was going on in the bathroom, what were you thinking?
I was scared, thinking that he was coming in to kill him.
Rachel began to sob on the witness stand as her 911 call was played in court. She repeated that she was scared for her life and for the lives of her friends. She believed James was there to kill. On cross, the defense asked Rachel why she felt that way.
How many, I think that on the day, on August 27th, you gave a statement to law enforcement?
Yes.
And on that day, do you recall telling the detective that Mr. Colley looked blacked out as he walked by you?
No, I don't recall that.
Prosecutors used text messages James sent to demonstrate what they described as escalating threatening behavior. The texts began in July and continued up through the day of the murders. James sent the following texts to his best friend and neighbor, Mike Dickens. Did Amanda stay at the house last night? Was Amanda's truck here this morning? Was a car there? Is her car there? She's a whore. She is an evil person. She's a cheating whore. She is the worst person on this earth. Now she will pay. James also spoke to Mike about Amanda's friend, Lindy. Lindy came by today. 30 minutes later, Amanda tells me she doesn't feel anything for me anymore. I'm pretty sure she's going to take Lindy with her to court to talk bad about me. It's total BS. She has those two bitches in her ear. They have never been through that shit. Lindy feeds her full of shit. The weekend before the shooting, Mike noticed a man without a shirt mowing the lawn at Amanda's house. He took a picture of the man and sent it to James's sister for verification of who the man was. On August 27th, Mike said James was repeatedly calling him in the early morning hours. He finally woke up at 4 a.m. to James banging on his front door.
I knew he just wanted me to come outside and look in the front seat of his truck.
Right. Did he tell you why he wanted you to look in the front seat of his truck?
Not at the beginning. He just kept telling me to get out there and look what I did or look what I found.
Okay. How would you describe his demeanor at the time?
He was agitated. He was upset. Yeah, he was real antsy, but he was upset. He was crying, from what I recall.
Mike went out to speak with James in front of his house. James was insistent that he look at what he found.
And what was it that he wanted you to see?
A bunch of sex toys.
And he was upset about discovering these items. Is that correct?
It was, yes, sir.
Did he tell you where he found these toys?
He did.
Where did he tell you he found them?
He told me he had ransacked the house and he found this inside the house.
And when you said ransacked the house, or was he referring to Amanda Colley's residence at 360 South Bellagio?
He was, yes, referring to his house, yes.
How did you respond to that?
Basically, well, there's your proof, that she's cheating, and my conversation basically was, big deal, big deal. Who cares? Go home.
Up until this point, Mike was aware that James had moved out and was having marital issues with Amanda. He didn't know the extent of them. Mike said James kept repeating, "This is what I found. This is what I found." He gave James a beer and told him to chill out, go home, and that he'll get through the divorce. James left, and about an hour later, Mike texted him saying he was stupid and was going to ruin his life. Mike went off to work later that morning. When he learned of the shooting, he jumped in his truck and headed to his neighborhood. On his way home, he texted James that he needed to turn himself in. On cross, the defense asked why Mike took the picture of the man mowing the lawn.
The cutting the grass. Did you used to cut the grass for the Colleys after JR moved out?
I did. I took care of that property and several others in the cul-de-sac.
So when you sent that picture of what we now know to be Lamar cutting the grass, was it to stir the pot, or was it to find out whether or not you needed to continue cutting the grass?
It definitely was not to stir anything. It was to find out. I was just about to go cut the grass. Didn't know if it was a landscape company. Didn't know if it. My text, I think I recall, was I asked Rhonda if it was Lindy's husband. I've never met that gentleman. I don't know what it looks like. That's what the purpose of that text was.
Mike said James was upset and crying when he showed up at his house at 4 a.m. on August 27th. He described his demeanor on cross as more hurt than angry. But on redirect, Mike said he also described James's demeanor as irate. Prosecutors called Lamar Duberly to the stand. He said he met Amanda at a work function in April 2015. They were both working for a sporting goods company, but in different departments.
The relationship started professionally and progressed into a personal relationship. And then we began seeing each other in June 2015.
At the time, he too was married, but separated from his wife. Amanda and Lamar began to have an intimate relationship with overnight stays. In August, Amanda told him that the photo of him mowing the lawn had gotten to James. So when Lamar heard the popping noises and a man yelling, "Where is he?" he thought the shooter might be coming for him. Lamar ran away but managed to call 911. He came back to the scene to give a statement to police. He also spoke to detectives later that day, and again a few days later. James's defense asked Lamar if he was aware that Amanda had purchased sex toys. He said he believed she got them about a week before the incident, but never saw them himself. The defense also asked Lamar if he could positively identify the shooter.
Did you ever see Mr. Colley?
I've never laid eyes on Mr. Colley.
Did you ever see a man in the backyard?
No, sir.
Do you have any idea what angle Mr. Colley would have been firing from when he made that second shot?
No, sir.
The St. Johns County medical examiner conducted the autopsies on Amanda and Lindy. Dr. Predrag Bulik said both women died of homicidal violence from gunshot wounds. He said he found 9 gunshots on Amanda's body. She was shot in her abdomen, head, arm, chest, and legs. He believes the fatal shot entered her neck, struck her carotid artery, and severed her spinal cord. As the doctor was describing the locations of the gunshot wounds, James lowered his head and covered his ears with his hands. Dr. Bulik said Amanda had defensive wounds on her body from raising her hands and legs in front of her to protect herself. He said the trajectory of the bullets said the most likely scenario was that the victim was standing facing the shooter and then twisted away as she was shot. James eventually put his head down on the table as the doctor was testifying. Lindy Dobbins was shot 3 times, in her right temple, right shoulder, and left foot. The trajectory of the head wound indicated that the shooter was standing right above her. Crime scene technicians collected a 9mm handgun from Amanda's bathroom. The gun was found next to her body, along with a cell phone. Projectiles were recovered from the bathroom, closet, and living room. On day 3 of the trial, the defense announced that they would be changing their strategy. James said he wanted to abandon his involuntary intoxication defense. His attorneys said they would no longer be calling medical experts as planned. No explanation was provided. Prosecutors called James's girlfriend, Amy Mason, to the stand. She began by explaining how they had formed a relationship.
We were coworkers. We started communicating back and forth. We became friends, stayed friends for the month of June, July. After, him finding out about his wife's affair, we began dating. We started dating. Once he filed for divorce, we made it more serious. And we dated from the end of July through August.
Amy said they talked about getting married and starting their lives together. It was all talk and nothing was planned, but she said their relationship was growing stronger. On the night of August 26, 2015, she was talking and texting with James on the phone until about 11:30 p.m. The next morning, she texted him to make sure he was awake for his court hearing. He responded around 7 a.m., saying he was. At 8:30 a.m., she texted him, "I love you." At 10:23 a.m., James texted her back that he loves her too. Records show the first 911 call from Amanda's house was placed just 13 minutes later.
Was it common for you two to send back and forth, "I love you"?
Yes, it was.
How many times a day would that happen?
25 or 10 times a day. It was just we both love to send "I love you" texts.
Did you think there was anything out of the ordinary from the 1023 text that said "I love you"?
I was just replying to my text messages that I had previously sent.
As far as the 27th, did you have any plans that day with Mr. Colley?
Yes, we did. We had plans to go and get a tie for him. My sister was getting married that weekend, and he was going to join me at the wedding. We had plans the whole weekend to spend the weekend together, to introduce our kids together.
Amy began crying on the witness stand as she described her and James's plans to go to her sister's wedding that weekend with both of their children. While deputies were searching for James, they executed a search warrant at his sister's house where he had been staying. Crime scene technicians processed his bedroom, and photos of it were presented to the jury. One of the photos showed a gun case and holster. Another had a gym bag full of ammunition. According to an investigator, one of the types of ammo found is also referred to as a zombie round and leaves a specific mark. This mark was found on Amanda's body. Virginia law enforcement who arrested James noticed that he had some visible blood and scratches on his face, along with stains underneath his fingernails. They also found ammunition, an AR-15, and a .45 caliber handgun on the front passenger seat of the vehicle. The handgun had 1 bullet in the chamber and 8 in the magazine. One of the bullets was the same type of the zombie rounds found in James's bedroom. There were 29 rounds in the magazine of the AR-15. 2 boxes of ammunition were found on the passenger seat, with many of the rounds spilled out. The state rested, and James declined to testify in his own defense. The defense began their case by recalling the state's digital forensic examiner. He was asked to extract data from 5 cell phones in the case. One of those belonged to Amanda. Text messages from a conversation between James and Amanda on August 24th and August 26th were entered into evidence. The text exchanges went like this. James, just know that there are things that you can never take back. Not when the kids call me, why they've been gone, keeping them from his birthday party. You're a bad person. Amanda, the last text I received from you said don't mess with me or my family. No need to talk anymore. You can get the kids Monday. You told me not to contact you anymore. How was I supposed to get in touch with them? James, Amanda, you could have called for the kids. I would never keep them from you. Let's just beat this divorce up and get this over with. I really hope you love this person who destroyed our whole family for it. Amanda, you have seriously lost it. James, sure. Oh, and your boyfriend has been parking in the playground and walking around the back. The whole neighborhood knows. You've just let him park out front like a man. Yeah, everyone knows. What are you? Amanda, he is not my boyfriend, like I told you before. He helps me with the yard work, paint, moving furniture, etc. James, so why doesn't he pull in the driveway if he isn't hiding? And I guess he is married, right? Amanda, what am I? Someone said to you, enough is enough. No one should have to be spoken to the way you've spoken to me. James, tell yourself what you want. By the way, he is ugly. I have a pic of him. James then sent Amanda the photo of Lamar mowing the lawn. Amanda, you're so full of shit. We're not more than friends, but keep sweeping lies about me. It just makes me hate you more. James, call me, please. Can I at least have the furniture? If you're with this man, just tell me so I can move on. I can't hurt you in court because of Florida law. I deserve the truth. I can take that as a yes. Amanda, I'm taking care of the children. I don't have help from anyone, remember? I'm not with anyone. I'm trying to figure out what the rest of my life looks like. James, well, I really hope I can be in that picture. I love you. The defense next called James's attorney from his domestic violence injunction. Attorney Kyle Bedrin said that James did seem nervous and jittery on the morning of August 27th before the court hearing. He said everything went according to plan during the hearing.
Even afterwards, he was still a bit jittery, a little bit different than before, but still a bit jittery at that time.
Was he upset?
Based on my observations, I wouldn't say that he was necessarily upset.
Was he happy?
Again, based on my observations, I think I could say he was happy.
He was happy? And did he do anything that was out of the ordinary that day? When you were finished?
When we were finished, dealing with these types of cases, we run into all different types of folks that when we're facing any courtroom for that matter, there's a bit of nerves that come involved. Based on my observations with Mr. Colley of our time at that, the jitteriness and the nervousness that followed after we had resolved everything was a bit different than normal.
And when you left and when you departed, how did you say goodbye?
I believe Mr. Colley had given me a hug, shook my hand, and then we left, and I believe we were exiting out the south entrance.
And did you ever have any conversation with Mr. Colley going forward?
Yes, sir.
On cross, Bedrin said James appeared to be coherent and understood the proceedings. James's sister, Rhonda Colley Boatwright, said James first started staying at her place around July 4th. She said she would see James and Amanda together for the next week. She considered Amanda to be one of her best friends. She said she viewed herself as a go-between for the two of them when they started having marital problems. She had an extended trip to Italy planned for later in the summer. Before she left, she made sure her maroon Infiniti and the 2 guns she kept inside of it were locked up. The 2 guns, a 9mm handgun and a .45 caliber pistol, were Christmas gifts she had received from James and Amanda. On cross, the prosecution asked Rhonda why she said both of her guns were in her car, when she had told detectives 2 weeks after the shooting that she believed she only kept a .45 in her car.
I remember a police officer coming in, asking me, wanting to talk to me saying I'm not comfortable really talking without an attorney present, and that's basically all I remember of the conversation. And I said, you remember dude saying, why are you guys saying this is premeditation when you know that the guns are in my car? Right. And along those lines.
Right. You volunteered that. You're like, hey, right. It's not what you guys think it is, right. Because I had the guns in the car. Right. Right. Yes. And he asked you, well, what guns did you have in your car? Right. And you said, I think it might have been a .45, but you said nothing about the 9mm, did you?
Right. I was on a lot of medication then too as well.
Okay. So you needed medication to be able to.
This was a very traumatic event. I know that a lot of people don't really care about the defendant's family, but
it's not a response. Just answer Mr. Johnson's questions, please.
Rhonda repeated that she did not recall what she said to the detectives during her interview. She said she was in shock at that time as her brother was accused of murder. She did not own an AR-15. She said she talks to her brother nearly every day.
You love your brother, don't you?
Yes, I love Amanda.
He's your little brother, right?
Yes.
And you would do anything for him, wouldn't you?
To buy anything.
Well, that's my question. You would do anything for your little brother, wouldn't you?
To a point.
The defense rested and the state called one rebuttal witness. Sergeant Eugene Tolbert conducted the interview with Rhonda 2 weeks after the murders. He said she asked about getting back a cell phone, computer, and firearms. Sergeant Tolbert said Rhonda volunteered the information about the firearms, and he inquired from there because he found it relevant.
She remembered 2 firearms being in her vehicle prior to her leaving to go to Europe.
Okay. Did she tell you what type of firearms were in her vehicle?
She said they were handguns.
Okay. Did she tell you what caliber of handguns?
She said she knew one of them was a .45, and she was pretty unsure on the other one, but she did mention possibility of a .380.
Okay. And did at any point in time during this conversation, did she ever tell you, either tell you clearly or even maybe even in an uncertain way, whether or not there was a 9mm handgun in her car when she left her trip to Italy?
She did not say that, no.
Sergeant Tolbert said that Rhonda walked back her statement a bit towards the end of the interview, saying she thought one of the guns may have been left in her husband's truck at some point. On cross, the defense asked how sure Rhonda seemed about what was in her vehicle.
I think she wavered. I think that at times she came off very definitive, and at other times she was like, maybe I don't know. So, I don't know how you classify that.
So going back and forth,
yes,
she was sure, she wasn't sure.
Correct.
In her closing argument, prosecutor Jennifer Dunton said James committed these murders because he was angry. She said it was not a sudden anger, but a resentment that built over time. He felt rejected by Amanda, and his anger grew as she ignored his 22 phone calls that morning. Prosecutor Dunton said James was also angry at Lindy Dobbins for standing by Amanda no matter what. She said James went into the home looking for Amanda and Lamar, but when he found Lindy, he killed her instead because he thought she was part of the reason why his family was taken from him. She said James made a series of choices and decisions and had time to reflect on those decisions. She said James premeditatedly killed Amanda and Lindy. He also attempted to kill Lamar and Rachel in a premeditated manner. In their closing arguments, the defense claimed that Amanda was leading James on.
Just give me the fortitude that I asked for, and I can move on. Just let me go. Those are the things that James Colley had been asking his wife for some time as he knew what was going on in her life. Because he knew that there was a relationship between her and another man. But she continues to tell him, no, it's not what you think. There's nobody else. He cuts my yard. He helps out around the house. Our 5-year-old son is a liar.
Defense attorney Terry Shoemaker said James's phone records show he was trying to move on with his life, but Amanda kept holding on to him. Shoemaker said that despite the injunction in the divorce paperwork, James and Amanda were not out of each other's lives. He said Amanda was having just as much contact with James as he was with her. Shoemaker said it was an emotional roller coaster that led to these terrible events. He asked the jury to first look at the burglary charge. He said Amanda told James that she had a migraine and was going to sleep. So he expected her to be home, and he had been there before despite the injunction. Shoemaker argued the burglary charge should rather be trespassing. He said the state wants the jury to believe that James drove home after the court hearing to pick up the guns, arguing that that shows premeditation. But Shoemaker said James's sister's testimony proves that the guns were already inside the car when he left the courthouse. He said James went back to his sister's house to prepare for work, put some gas in the car, and then, for an unknown reason, stopped at Amanda's.
And I don't know why he went there. I can only conclude that he was trying to fix things because he knew what he had done the night before. He knew that he had damaged the TVs. He knew that he had thrown some things around the house. He was going back to try to fix what he did. And then unfortunately after that, we let me get this terrible chain of events. I don't know what happened to set him off. The state doesn't know what happened to set him off. I have no idea, but I can tell you that he already had the guns, and if he was going to go over there to do this, he would have gone straight from court.
He said that James was unable to see Lamar in the home, and you can't shoot what you can't see. He suggested to the jury that better fits the lesser included charge of attempted manslaughter than attempted murder. Shoemaker then used the same logic for the attempted murder charge of Rachel Hendricks. He said James wasn't able to see her when he fired into the closet and said that is more conducive of an attempted manslaughter charge. Shoemaker said the state never proved premeditation for the murders of Amanda and Lindy. What happened to throw this all off? No one knows, he said. Therefore, it's a second-degree murder case. The jury was sent out to deliberate. Less than 2 hours later, they had reached their verdict. Guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Members of the Colley family and the Dobbins family could be seen crying in the courtroom. The criminal case then entered a second phase. In it, the state argued that James's crimes were especially heinous and cruel. They cited several aggravating factors for why they believed the jury should recommend death. That he was committing another felony at the time of the murders. That it was also at the time of a burglary. That the murders were committed in a cold and calculating manner, and that the murders were committed at the same time as a domestic violence injunction was in place. The defense argued that mitigating circumstances outweigh those factors. They said James's mental state should be carefully considered. They said James had a couple of drinks the night before the murders, and on the morning of the murder, he did several lines of cocaine with his friends. His mind was also substantially impaired from having had taken Ambien that morning. They asked the jury to remember that James has 2 young children and has done charitable work in the community. They asked the jury to consider all of these factors, including possible implications of the medications and ongoing mental health issues, as a reason to recommend a life sentence. This time, the jury reached a verdict in a little more than 3 hours.
We, the jury, unanimously find that James Terry Colley Jr. should be sentenced to death. Yes.
The jury recommended James be sentenced to death for the murders of his estranged wife and her best friend. 38-year-old James Colley Jr. was officially sentenced to death on November 30th, 2018. He now sits on death row in the care of the Florida Department of Corrections. Lindy Dobbins and her husband had been married for 12 years. He said he had to tell their 2 children that there was an accident involving Mommy and Ms. Amanda, and Mommy is dead. He says an empty blue chair now sits next to him at baseball games for their son. One of Amanda's friends said she planned to go to law school to become an attorney for domestic violence victims. And that's all for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear what you think about this case. Let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram @CourtJunkie, by tweeting me @CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing me at podcast@courtjunkie.com. This episode was researched and written by Jennifer Tintner from the Law and Crime Trial Network. Follow Jennifer on Twitter @JenniferTintner. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.